All right. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
Sean. Today we got a guest that's going to be joining us here shortly. We're not sure if he has a beverage, but we're going to get into a discussion of a very fascinating story.
Yep.
He's written a book called Charlatan. Some of you may be familiar with it, but for those of you who don't, it's a pretty interesting biography of a guy that was quite the entrepreneur, I guess.
That's one way to put it. That's yeah. That's one way to put it. I will say this: we may get the E rating because we're going to be saying the F word.
Yes,
Flim
we will.
flam.
Flim flam. That old flim flam. The age of flim flam.
The age of flim flam. That tells you we're going way back in time.
Yeah.
We pulled this story out of the history books, or our guest did.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, why he picked this, and kind of the story behind the story. But yeah, it's like we'd like to delve in every once in a while, Jonathan, to the darker side,
to the seedy world of Hucksterism, I guess.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about John Brinkley. He was Dr. John Brinkley, the story of America's most dangerous huckster, by Pope Barack. He's written a book called Charlatan. It's been out a while. Fabulous book. I actually stumbled upon this book after reading, Dan Kennedy's book years ago called Make 'Em Believe.
Yes.
And he referenced this book. He said it was outstanding. So actually, I read it, a good chunk of it, actually on a plane ride. And it was fascinating, really captivating. So it's not only about the story of the swindler, but also the guy that went after him. So it's kind of a really fun ride.
Catch me if you can sort of story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
That movie.
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah.
So I have not read the book, so it'll be driving some of the conversation. I did use our friend ChatGPT to come up with some questions. So
yeah.
Let's back up. By the way, we'll get into our beverages here. Maybe we can come back to this at the end of the show. But have you seen the new video creator that OpenAI just...
No, I have not.
It's called Sora, Sora.
Okay.
It will do full-blown video clips, like B-roll footage.
Right.
With just a text prompt, and it will create entire video scenes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's not available to the public yet, but they've shown it, and they've started rolling it out to some beta users in different niches.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they do have samples on their website. So maybe at the end, if we have time, we'll.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, let's talk about beverages.
All right. Well, today I've got this is from Four Hands Brewing Company. It is a beautiful chocolate milk stout.
Ooh, nice.
I don't know much about it. I couldn't find anything on their website about this one, but looks like 6% ABV. It's a milk stout, so it's got to be good, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's hard to screw those up.
How about you?
I've got from St. Arnold's Brewing here in Texas, oldest craft brewery.
Okay.
I have got a juicy IPA.
Juicy.
It is tropical.
Why would you do that?
And bursting with hops.
Come on, Sean.
I know, right? Well, here's why I did it. It was on the clearance rack. It was 99 cents. I was like,
99 cents
for the, it was 99 cents for the single. So
okay, gotcha.
I'm like, okay,
all right.
Just try. It is a juicy IPA, so it's more fruit than tree or plant.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at the screen here. It's only 37 or 32 IBUs. So I don't know.
Yeah, could be tricky. I mean, I don't know. It's I didn't know you were a guy that get caught. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. Look at the difference.
Yeah.
little haze going there.
Yeah.
So that's all it takes, man. 99-cent beer, and you're on it.
That's right. Well, I pulled out a quad ale.
Yeah.
That was more than that. So I kind of had to balance the scales a little bit to, to have a beer. But I'll have the quad ale probably next week. So let's
toast it up. Like I said, we're not sure if our guest has a beverage. If he does, we will toast with him once again. But if not, we'll go ahead. So cheers. Oh.
So I'm going to say this is not bad. It's not overpowering like spruce tree or pine tree.
Yeah.
Definitely more juicy. Got the citrus, but it does have that hoppy aftertaste, which I don't love.
Right.
But it's not like hit you in the face hops like, a lot of the IPAs are. So I'm going to give this a 2.8.
A 2.8. Okay. That's about right where
that's where an
IPA belongs.
So not terrible, but
between 1.8, 2.8, that's a good
if I had ordered this at a restaurant, I would not be ordering a second. I'll tell you that.
One's enough for me, thank you.
Yes. I'll switch to Guinness now, thank you.
I actually really thought about getting a Guinness today, but decided I'd hold off on this one after I saw this one. I'm actually going to give this stout I'm going to give it a nice 4.6 on our show rating. 4.6. Very good. Right. I love it.
I see in the green room, Pope just popped into the green room. So we can see you, Pope. I know you, and you can.
Should we bring you back up?
Problem is here.
Can you hear us now?
Settings.
And then audio. And then.
Should we
Here.
Does that do it?
Test. Can
you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Now we got
an echo.
On that same
page, you should see a check box.
This is
Yep.
Click.
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Perfect.
Oh, God.
Well, there we go.
What is wrong?
Now you learned something about StreamYard. So next time you're on a call, you'll know exactly what to do. We'll edit all this out, so it's no big deal. So
exactly.
No stress.
Yep.
Just give us more time to drink.
I'm a child of Zoom. What can I tell you? Never.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of a new platform. If you're used to running Zoom conference, this is a little bit different. So.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. I've had people on Zoom, same problem. Exactly. Yeah. Like you have to click because like I have 3 different, outputs between headphones and the MacBook and other stuff. So yeah, but we're here now.
Okay.
Did you have a beverage or you just gonna?
I have water. That's about all I can.
Okay. Well, so we'll just pick up. I guess we'll just pick up Jonathan with an intro. Do you have an intro?
Yeah. So we've got, we kind of hinted at the beginning, but we've got Pope Brock. He's the author of the book Charlatan, America's Most Dangerous Huckster, the man who pursued him and the age of Flim Flam. So this is a fascinating story of John Brinkley, America's most brazen con man. And we'll get into how he became super wealthy. I don't know. I guess you could kind of put doctor in quotes a little bit there because of he was more of a quack than anything. But interesting story. Pope, I had a chance I stumbled upon your book like a couple of years ago and read it. It was fascinating just from start to finish how this man got to the point where he was, and then also the story of Morris Fishbein. I don't know how you would pronounce that.
Fishbein, yeah.
Fishbein, the guy that ultimately was trying to hunt him down And so it's an incredible story. I want to get into it, but first we want to kind of talk about yourself. What led you to write this book, first of all, and tell us a little bit about your background and in writing, because you've authored a number of books, but this is obviously one that caught my eye years ago, and it's a pretty popular, because I know it's referenced a lot in our circles, the circles that Sean and I go in. Sean's a copywriter. We're both into marketing, and we talk about that on a regular basis. So what led you to, I guess, writing a book like this?
Well, I was browsing a website called the Museum of Hoaxes.
Yeah.
And it had, just all different kinds of things you can imagine, from April Fool's hoaxes on. And I stumbled, and it was just one line. It said, Dr. John Brinkley, goat testicles, 1,000,000-watt radio station.
Yeah.
And I said, who is this dude? Started, digging into it. And
yeah.
I was delighted with what I found, and very grateful that nobody had actually done a book on it, of any in mainstream publishing. So I was glad to get it.
Yeah. How much research did you have to put into this character? Because we're talking about someone, this was around 1917. So it was kind of around the little after the turn of the century. And it was kind of during an age of, you hear a lot of those old school radio ads and people selling everything from, it was like, I guess maybe a little after the whole snake oil, era, but you could still get away with a lot of stuff. So,
which was a real thing, by the way, snake oil.
Yeah.
There was a guy who squeezed snakes, right? Columbia Exposition, just getting that in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this obviously early on, was this guy a real doctor? I guess that's one of my questions.
Well, he improvisationally, he wound up with a couple of fake diplomas, to the degree that makes you a doctor. One from Italy and one from somewhere out west. Didn't actually graduate from anything reputable, no. But back then, the AMA was so weak that you could get away with stuff like that in a way that you couldn't possibly now.
So since you've, I'm not going to since you're the writer, I want you to kind of give the background of the story of John Brinkley, and kind of what led him, or leading up to him being kind of this master salesman, so to speak. And when we talk about salesmen, selling cures for everything under the sun, but the main thing he was looking at was it was impotence, right? That was the main thing that he was targeting.
That was it, yeah.
And of all things, to hit the cure that he recommended is just completely bizarre. We think about that today in our age, and it just sounds like, how could anybody get suckered into something like that? But I want you to start off with the foundation, maybe share the story.
Well, he was just scrabbling along in Kansas without any handhold, really, and he wanted to get rich. That was his main ambition, right? And then, there's the origin story of this farmer wandering in, and this is a small town, Milford, Kansas.
Yeah.
The farmer wanders in, and he goes through various euphemisms and says, that he can't get it up.
Yeah.
And then the story goes that then he looked out the window of Brinkley's office, and there were goats out there in the yard, or out in the back, and he said, "I wish I had goat nuts." And the penny dropped, or the $1 million dropped. And now, whether it was in the air, in that there were reputable people working with monkeys and so on over in Europe, not working on impotence exactly, but who thought they could rejuvenate people, get them to live longer and whatnot.
Sure.
Monkey glands. This was the down home American Midwest quack version of that idea, and it was perfectly tailored, of course, to the farm community, right? Because there were the goats. He took that idea, combined it with an early understanding that radio could sell it.
Yeah.
Put two things together, and made himself mega rich, and very famous.
I'm curious, Pope. So this was like 1917, right? Pretty. I mean, was it still fairly conservative? Like how? I'm curious. I have not read the book yet, like Jonathan has, but I'm curious. Like, how do you do a radio ad about impotence in a time that was, and I'm assuming that was fairly conservative?
Yeah, you would think, but if you go back to the transcripts of him and the recordings, there are still some excellent recordings of him talking on the radio. He's amazingly frank, and he's going out. Part of how he was able to do it, I think, is because radio was so odd and unusual in that it seemed like a friend talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
So he had these people in their farmhouses and whatnot, either in rural communities or really isolated, but they had their radios and they'd be lying there at night, say, and listening to Brinkley, who could just unspool this stuff, just I'm your friend, and here I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. I know that right there beside you, you've got somebody who, that sort of stuff, and people responded to that because it was so personal.
Yeah, and I think we have to remember that in that age of radio, there was a lot of, like, it wasn't music like we have now as much as it was storytelling, news. I mean, obviously this was later, but Paul Harvey comes to mind just as that type of voice that kind of carried over from that era.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it was, I mean, that was TV back then, right? That was the early version of TV, is the storytelling was on the radio, not
absolutely
wasn't visual. So that makes a lot of sense. So how did you? So you said you saw the thing. How did you start getting into the research for the book? What were some of the most surprising things you found? Because I mean, it's a pretty quick story. You could summarize it pretty quickly, but I mean, you end up writing hundreds of pages on it.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things you found, and how did you go about digging into this?
Well, I went places. I went to Kansas. Milford is now at the bottom of a dam, so it's not like you can go to that town. But I did go to Del Rio, which is where he went afterwards, and into Mexico, where he also, I mean, we can get into the chronology of it, but he wound up going down into Mexico and setting up a bigger radio station there. So there are archives there. There's his, there's a museum at Del Rio that has a lot of stuff. The Kansas Historical Society in Topeka is the biggest trove. They've got a mass of stuff that they've collected from all over the place. And, I found a couple of just wisps, just a couple of people who were actually connected to it in some way, nursing home type finds. So I put it together that way. And the AMA files, just standard research, legwork, Morris Fishbine's son, stuff like that. It was fun. It was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, I think that's one thing people underestimate. I mean, we talk a lot about marketing, and I've been a copywriter for 15 years. Jonathan's in sales, and we say over and over on this show how important research is, and I don't think people really get it.
Yeah,
and going beyond Google and things like that to some of the nuance that you pick up. Talk a little bit about that. Like, what's one of your favorite things that happened on your one of your research trips?
Ooh, well, let's see. We're gonna have to come back to that because I'm gonna.
Or more surprising, like, was there anything that really surprised you in your research?
Well, I was surprised, at the extent of, at how smart he was. The quack part was obvious.
Yeah.
The way, but his marketing was absolutely brilliant and pioneering in this way, and this way. That really knocked me out. The fact that he could think, okay, pre-recorded interviews. Okay, I bring in a spirit medium and people selling autographed pictures of Christ, and this will get people to listen to me, and all the sort of the surrounding elements that he put together to create what seemed like a big radio family, a whole world that you could enter. And then the selling became part of getting entertained and getting informed and making new friends and all of that. That was the kind of radio he put together. But then he had once he got chased out of the United States, when he went down to Mexico with a suitcase full of cash for the Mexico City government and set up a radio station of 1 million watts. I mean, that's just astounding. It really is. I mean, he went over half the world. And
wow.
he was wiping out. He was wiping out the Grand Ole Opry. He was wiping out everything. With that footprint.
I've got some of his old. I've got a collection of some of his old radio ads that I found. I think I sent a link to you, Sean. I think this was probably last year, but I was digging around, and it was after reading your book, Pope. I went digging around, seeing if I could find a collection, and there was one site that was selling him like several MP3s. And so it's fascinating though, because his ads are sometimes in between, and I'm sure they ran on all over, but it's interesting how some of them are like buried right in between, like it sounds like gospel music or old time music. And all of a sudden, here comes a John Brinkley ad in there, and just talking, like you said, matter of fact, like, I mean, it's just matter of fact, like, this makes complete sense. So,
he had this thing called medical question box going, which helped make the thing even more personal. You'd write in, I've got a pain here or whatever. And then people would write in, and he would read these things on the air and prescribe imaginary medicines for them that weren't imaginary in that they were real bottles, imaginary cures in them, he would sell, he wow. added to his fortune that way.
Oh yeah. He was selling potions and all sorts of stuff on the side. I mean, outside of his surgery, testicle surgery, why not have some other things that you can sell along with that? Right?
Absolutely. Why confine yourself? Once you've got a miracle cure, then it begins to just bleed out.
And an audience, right?
Right.
And an audience. That's right.
Yeah. So that's interesting. You talked about how he had other people. So he was kind of creating his version of a what we might call today a social network platform, where he was kind of creating his own version of YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and just kind of managing it. Was when he had the 1 million watt station, was he doing regular radio advertising, programming, and then just putting his own commercials in, or was it just like wall to wall his friends' stuff? Or
well, it was a combination of as I said, mediums and people selling color back hair dye, things like that, mixed in with music acts and some comedy here and there. I mean, the Carter family got famous on his radio station, on his Mexican radio station.
Wow.
And a number of other country acts. I mean, one of the unintended consequences of his efforts was to send country music all over the United States. And that's a massive cultural achievement or development, even though that was it. All he had in mind was selling quack medicine.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who may not be familiar with kind of radio and wattage, how does a 1 million watt station compare to what was around at the time?
Well, when I think 50,000 was the outside limit of anything that was going on in the United States.
Wow.
So that's it.
20x.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty incredible. So I'm curious, like, when you wrote this book originally, like, who was the audience you were thinking about for it? And then who surprised you as far as like the response and like, because I see it got turned into a documentary as well, right? Or
yes, it did. Yeah, it did. It's called Nuts in capital letters. And it's great. If I can just plug the documentary for a second, it's told partially with animation, and it's very inventive. It's good. Who responded to it? Well, lots of people who said, I heard about it and I thought, ew, and then somebody I know read it and said, no, you just try it. But, well, this was actually not only funny or odd or something, but really informative about some foundational American history stuff. I mean, you don't get Brinkley doesn't come up in textbooks, as you might well imagine.
Yeah.
But he should, and for some of his innovations, some of his genuine innovations, he should.
Yeah, you mentioned one time, you said some of his marketing stuff, and now you've said innovations. Like, what's an example of something that he did? I mean, you said the Friends. What's another one that you found surprising and is like, oh wow, that's ahead of its time?
Well, he transcribed his own. He began to once he was in Texas, and then and then working out of Mexico. He didn't live in Mexico. He lived just across the border in Texas, and he began to think, I don't have to spend all this time in the studio. I'm trying to remember now what it was he cut them on, with some kind of hard material that he could transcribe his own raps on. And then he began to transcribe singers on, and he would ship these things to across the river and broadcast them. So the point, it was the illusion of being live. That was new. And that's big. That's a big development.
Yeah, because it's one thing to be a marketer, but to invent kind of a tool or whatever that makes you, be able to be available more often with less effort. I mean, that's very entrepreneurial.
It is. Sure. It is indeed.
Yeah.
So what was it that caught the, I guess, the ire of this, the quackbuster, Morris Fishbein? What got him involved to the degree that he made it his focus on bringing this guy down?
Well, the difficulty around Brinkley's signature procedure, which was this goatland operation. Mm-hmm. And just so we got the visual here, it was one of those Frankenstein things, or the Bride of Frankenstein, one of those things where you bring in the patient, you bring in the goat, they're both in the same room, and then you transfer the testicles, right? The problem with this was that not everybody survived those operations.
Right.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the cost of doing business, but Moore would have survived if he hadn't drunk quite as much as he did. But even then, a certain number were either killed or they got lockjaw, or they got they.
Yeah.
So and some of these people, I mean, as entertaining as the whole thing kind of is, the harm he did was pretty vicious. I mean, he ruined some lives with this.
Yeah.
And that's what got Morris Fishbein, who was the editor of the Journal of the American Medical Association, which at that time was little more than a pamphlet.
Yeah.
That's what got him so exercised. He said, I've got to stop this guy. He's not just a quack, he's a killer.
Yeah.
So that's why he made it his crusade to bring him down.
Did any of the did any of the surgeries actually work, like even from a placebo effect that we know of? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah. Look, if there's anything that a placebo effect is going to work on, it's going to be erectile dysfunction, right?
Yeah.
It's the ideal. It's the ideal problem to have for a practitioner to up his success rate.
Yeah, I actually was reading a book or listening to a book last night, and it was talking a little bit about placebo effects. And it was actually saying that the larger the procedure, like you go from a pill to a surgery, like the stronger the placebo effect.
Oh, is that right?
That I
didn't.
So that's, and they're actually finding that placebo effects work on dogs now.
Oh, interesting.
So it's not just a human thing. It's like something, even beyond that is happening. So, kind of fascinating, the whole placebo world, and how much power the mind has. So I could see how, I totally get it. Like there's similar stuff going on now. I don't know if you've heard of this, Pope, but there are poop transplant, fecal matter transplants. That's like a legitimate, or currently legitimate, we'll say that, process where somebody with a very healthy gut biome will transfer their fecal matter to someone else's intestines.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like there are sites that will, if you qualify, will pay like $500 per sample.
All right. The object of this is to replace your bad one with somebody's good one.
Yeah.
To restore your gut biome.
Yeah. Wow. Right. Okay.
Right.
Which is, it's crazy. It sounds very similar to what we're talking about as far as like implants. So here we are 100 years later.
Right.
There's less has changed.
It's not one of those things where we can look back and say, oh, those people, they were so silly or so stupid, because it just rolls on and on and on in different forms.
Right.
Just always taking different shapes.
It's easy to look back now, 100 years later and say, my gosh, but
Neanderthals, what losers, right?
Yeah,
but
right.
So people do crazy stuff when they're in pain.
The other thing that kept him in business really was that the placebo effect, and then a lot of people, there was a serious subset who were then too embarrassed to bring it up, to sue him, to fight back, or too poor to sue him. That kept him going too.
And some of them just wanted to believe. Really. They didn't want to feel like they were duped. Ultimately,
of course,
absolutely. Look, he became. He got a kind of Christ complex. He ran for governor. He won on the numbers and was, that's another story. But when he stood there and threw his arms out and said, I know how Jesus felt, I'm being persecuted by Morris Fishman. Then people just rose up, and they said, you're our guy. So, yeah.
Wow.
And ultimately this led to, this culminated into a courtroom confrontation. Tell us a little more about that, how that ended up.
Well, Brinkley had been through hearings before. In 1930, he lost his radio license and his Kansas medical license because of really through the efforts of Morris Fishman as much as anything else. And then, as I said before, he then took up a practice in Mexico and sort of gave all of that to Raspberry. So then he went on to. Oh God, I'm sorry. I just lost what was the question? I just lost.
What happened in court? Ultimately.
Oh, the court, right.
Yeah.
In that original hearing, he brought in satisfied customers to testify.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of people who were willing to do that. He lost there, but he assumed that when you get into a real courtroom, it was going to be a different deal, and he was going to bring, and he did. He brought down a rows of quote satisfied customers who were going to testify for him. The problem was that the judge then threw all of that out. He wouldn't let them testify.
Yeah.
Because they were not medical experts.
Right.
And once the judge kicked that out from under him and only let real doctors get up and testify, then he was done. He had the chutzpah to sue Fishbein. That's what put them in court. Brinkley was so sure he was going to win that if he'd kept his mouth shut, he could have kept on going for a while.
Yeah.
But if it was, he hung himself. I mean, that's what happened.
It's amazing. It's kind of that tragic, the tragic story of the person that, really it gets. They rise to a certain point, just like you said, it's kind of almost like a Jesus complex, where he says, I'm being crucified, so he puts himself to that level, to the point where he's confident enough to take this to trial, to court. And ultimately that was the wrong move. I mean, that was a big downfall.
He believed his own press too much.
Yeah.
So Pope, I'm curious, like, where do you see, there's a lot of, deception, ambition, pursuit of fame. Like, where do you see that kind of playing out in today's society? Do you see do you have your eye on anything similar that you're like, ooh, that reminds me of Hinckley?
Well, I don't know. Do we want to get into politics or not?
It's all available to you.
Is it?
Yep.
Because I just kind of keep banking around Trump just a little bit there before, and I don't want to.
Trump is kind of one of those showman type. I mean, he throws it out there, whether it's true or not, right?
The parallels are just are stark in some ways, and I don't know if that's something you want to get, but they are. This the first people, the first foreign publishers to take the rights to this thing were the Russians and the Koreans.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody told me, but I thought they see parallels to Trump. I mean, I think, they saw that American, whether that's true or not, it is absolutely true that Trump stands up and says, when he says, I'm your guy, I can save you, I can take care of all of your misery and all your problems. And,
right.
We'll steamroll all of these people that are trying, when they're trying to hurt me, they're trying to hurt you. I mean, that explicit, that's that playbook. I mean, straight ahead.
Yeah.
Why do you think, between your research and just, wisdom of living through life, why do you think that continues to work, even though we're supposedly, more educated, we got more access to information than ever before, but this flim flam, to use the subtitle of the book, like, why does it keep working?
Well, when you say access to information, but how do you tell what information from what information? It's just Then it's a shitstorm, and you can't tell you don't know what's real.
Right.
But people have wanted to believe something that's going to take them out of themselves forever. And they always will. Whether it's somebody with their interests at heart or not. I don't have to tell you, there are always people who just want to hand their heads over to somebody else and say, take care of me.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. It's easier to trust or just put your hope in something than sometimes do your own research. We've talked, I don't know if you're familiar, and we've talked about Trump in the past. Scott Adams wrote I think this was actually before Trump, his first election, but just his persuasion skills. And to me, they are skills regardless. He's a showman. He's persuasive. But there's a lot of comparison when I think about the book and reading through it. As you mentioned, there's a lot of similarities in his ability to get people to empathize with him, to get people on his side, to feel empathy when he is at fault or trying to get people on his side, and also just persuading people. I've listened to some of his radio ads, and Sean, we may be, before the segment's out, I've got some queued up here. We might just listen to a snippet. But some of them are very, very effective. But you have to be, I think, the fact that the way he speaks is so simple, and there's a lot of similarities to that in the persuasion method, like the Trump or anybody that is good at that really gets down onto the base level, the very simple level of people's mind, because people don't like to deal with complex. They like a simple answer, right? Yeah. And you've got to give them a simple answer. And sometimes when you're trying to tell the truth, you can sometimes make it more complex than it needs to be. And it gets really convoluted because there's never a real simple answer. It's typically the truth is pretty complex, but we don't want to think that. We want the simple answer to everything, and we'll gravitate towards those people who give us what we want. Right.
You bet. Yeah.
Yeah. We want the pill, the surgery in this case.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid we have to change our lifestyle in any way. Right. So, Bernie Madoff was kind of the similar thing, right? It's like,
yeah.
He wasn't as much of a showman. I think his was more a little bit behind the scenes and referrals and that kind of stuff. But
you guys know Carl Bernays, I assume. He was developed some early advertising techniques in the 1920s, and Goebbels adapted some of them for his propaganda. There's on a mass scale, operated by the wrong people on a mass scale. You can take some perfectly legitimate techniques and then just sort of bend them.
Sure.
Into then you've got the fascism beam going. It's like a gun in the wrong hands.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, go ahead, Jonathan.
No, I'm just thinking of The Greatest Showman. What's the
P.T. Barnum?
P.T. Barnum, yeah. That's kind of who comes to mind as well. I know that I've got a book on P.T. Barnum. It's been years, though, since I've looked through it. But, he was the great showman. And so a lot of people attribute a lot of his characteristics or just the way he went about things. Everything was big, Alfred Hitchcock, pretty similar, back in the day when he would promote movies like Psycho. It was like everything was show, you had to present a show. You had to, go beyond, just presenting the product. It had to be done the right way to get people in the seats.
Yeah.
So Pope, what do you think was, like, if you could just boil it down to like 2 or 3 key things that made Brinkley, successful as far as like his ability to influence, because that's what, persuade. What do you think those kind of 3 things were?
Well, he was a visionary. He saw things. His radio station he had the 4th radio station in America. He saw it right away. I can do something with this. And when people were just going, what's he was right on it. He said, I can do something with this. He was just amazingly energetic and courageous and totally without scruples. So I can put all that together. I have tremendous respect for his intellect, as ghastly as his moral principles were.
Yeah,
he had a hell of a brain.
I think there's lessons you can take from anybody's rise, to fame and fortune and power, regardless of how they got there. I think there's always lessons you can learn. So Pope, are you working on anything new or?
Yeah, it's different. Well, somewhat different thing. It's 18th century London, so it's a whole different world.
Oh, cool.
But one of the main characters is the father of pornography. So, he's
interesting.
He is an interesting character. He's good.
Wow, all the way back to the 1800s,
huh?
Yeah,
we said nothing new under the sun, right? I mean,
right.
Pope, it's been a pleasure. So I'm curious, how did this book? Last question: how did this book maybe change? Did this book change you in any way, like just from start to finish?
In the process of writing it, or just the
the process of writing it. Like, how does that work for a writer? Because this is different when you're writing about somebody else's life and a biography.
Yeah.
It's almost like you become. You kind of develop almost like a friendship. Like, so to speak, or a kind of an acquaintance with that person. How did it change you, though? Did you become more sympathetic with this character as you progress from start to finish, or
respect is different, from sympathetic.
Yeah. Okay.
But I did gain a lot more respect than I expected to have by the end of it. A combination of his chutzpah and his talents.
Absolutely. Very cool. Well, Pope, it has been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on the show. This is it's a fantastic read. I recommend, like, anybody out there who hasn't. It's a great biography. It's actually written really well, like a story. Like you're just kind of following through. There's a lot of drama in it, and with Morris, the Fishbein, the guy that's really trying to go after him, and it's an interesting character.
I was lucky in the sense that it came down to the classic courtroom confrontation.
Yeah. Yeah. All the elements of a good TV drama or movie drama, so that's.
I'm going to have to check out the documentary too. I see it's available on Prime. For sure. I'll have to check that out as well.
Please do.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you having me on.
Hey, thanks so much, Pope. It's been a pleasure having you on, and appreciate your time today.
Okay. Will you let me know when it's cut together?
Yeah, I sure will. We'll be sending you a link once we have it published next week, and you're free to share it with whoever.
Terrific. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Pope.
Thanks, Pope. Yep. See you. That's good.
Yeah. Good stuff. Man.
All right. Just for our listeners, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I've got some of these queued up.
Okay, cool.
And I've got it Bluetooth. Let's see. Let's hear a live, or not a live, but let's hear an old time radio ad of Dr. John Brinkley.
Before I proceed with my talk, there is a thought that I want to leave with you, and that is this. These books, these doctor books, discussing our work, discussing your health, discussing your disease, are limited in number, and they are going fast. When the present supply is exhausted, I will not have any more to give away. I'm asking you to get your order in at once for a free copy of this book containing questions for men to answer, questions for women to answer. They are private questions about your health. Answer them truthfully. Return them to the Brinkley Hospital, Little Rock, Arkansas, and we will look them over and write you and tell you without obligation what we think you should do.
Wow.
In this book.
That's good. Like that's today's version of like a quiz. You see all the quizzes online for supplements and everything else.
Yeah, you got to fill this out to see if you qualify, and we'll tell you what you need to be doing. So even back then, it was like it wasn't a sell directly like this surgery. I mean, there was a step process. You get the book and you read it, and if you qualify, there's a qualification process that you go through. So
wow, that's pretty brilliant. I mean, just to step them through and the level of commitment, right? To fill out the answers, to mail it back. Like, people think it's hard to get people to click a Facebook ad. Like, you got to get somebody to call in, or write in asking for the book. They get 2 weeks later, the book shows up. Then they got to fill the book out. Then they got to mail it back. Then they got to wait for the response. That's a lot of hoops to jump through. And people today are like, don't want to write an ad.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, we've gotten lazy for sure.
Very lazy. Yeah. And notice the scarcity in that's going. I mean, like, we don't have many. There's limited number. So you better act now if you want it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like he wasn't a great speaker, No. I mean, back then, that's pretty much how all radio sounded. It was kind of that. It sounds like a lot of this politician speeches you hear from that time, as well. So that kind of broken staccato type of delivery, that was just the way people talked back then.
Right.
But I think it's like the tone is very calm and level headed. It wasn't super hypey.
No, it's just matter of fact. It sounds, it's just, hey.
Like, oh, we want to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a professional, here's what you need to do.
And I love how he offered for both men and women. So if the wife was listening, she could ask for the women's book. If the husband was listening, or the guy was listening, that was, a lot of people might have done one or the other, or just done men because that's who they were targeting. But to have a book available for the women, pretty smart.
Yeah, very much.
I'd love to know how many of each got requested. That would be an interesting, interesting thing to dig up. So I'm definitely gonna have to watch that documentary this weekend. And
me too. I didn't realize it was on Prime, so that's gonna be
like $2.99 on Prime, but $3 I can swing it.
Okay.
Got a 7.1 out of 10. So
interesting.
How long it is? It doesn't say how long it is. Oh, 1 hour and 19 minutes. So.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And it won a Sundance Film Festival award. So must be pretty decent. So, hey, can we switch gears and can I show you some of this stuff that OpenAI is cranking out as we wrap up?
Yeah, this sounds really good.
All right, so OpenAI has just thrown their hat in the ring for video.
Okay.
So this is really going to be something if you go to our YouTube channel and watch this episode on the YouTube channel, or you can go to openai.com/Sora, SORA. So that's the video version of like DALL-E, basically.
Yeah.
Right? So here is kind of their website where they're talking about it. And here is here's one of the videos. I can get it to load. Internet's a little slow. Let me refresh the page.
All right.
Yeah.
And this is not available yet it's
so not yet. So here's the prompt. This is here's the prompt. The whole prompt is like 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences, 5 sentences. For our listeners, I'll just read it. A stylish woman walks down a Tokyo street filled with warm, glowing neon and animated city signage. She wears black leather jacket, a long red dress, and black boots, carries a black purse. She wears sunglasses and red lipstick. She walks confidently and casually. The street is damp and reflective, creating a mirror effect of the colorful lights many pedestrians walk about.
Wow.
And then here's the clip. Doesn't have any sound. It's like B-roll footage, basically. This is a 60-second clip that it created. It's kind of slow motion, but it's like, it's not animated. It's actual it looks like actual video footage that you would take with a camera, and the camera is moving. It's, it's kind of panning around her as she walks. This is all created with AI.
It's amazing.
Just from that prompt. There's no, there's no cameraman. There's no nothing going on here. Jump cuts.
Wow. Look at
that. Catching the reflection in her sunglasses.
It didn't even ask for that though.
Yeah.
It didn't prompt it to add those
add the cuts and the, getting the reflection in the sunglasses. It just kind of seems to know what makes kind of an interesting video. Here's one with woolly mammoths walking through the wilderness. So obviously that's, not real because these are woolly mammoths. And that's like a 10-second clip. Here's another one of a guy walking on, it's a movie trailer of a 30-year-old spaceman wearing a red wool knitted motorcycle helmet. I mean, these look like somebody set up a film set and recorded. It's from a text prompt. And it's original footage.
Wow.
Like, it's not piecing together other footages. It's creating this somehow. Here's a drone footage of a lighthouse on on the ocean with the waves and everything else. Like, and here's like an animated little furry guy playing with a candle, little fluffy monster. Now I was like, oh, these are kind of cool. And then I kept reading the website. Here's, his quote, historical footage of California during the gold rush. So here's a full color video of California during the gold rush.
Wow.
Obviously. I mean,
that's crazy.
And then, this was what blew me away. So as I was looking at this stuff, I was like, that's pretty cool. I mean, blah, 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 but I get down to the, where was it? I saw that. All videos on this page were generated directly by Sora without modification.
Wow.
So like literally that prompt made that entire scene apparently without modification.
Movie industry is going to be dead in 10 years.
I mean, this is like different, I mean, for sure.
Like, can you imagine? I mean, if you're someone in Hollywood right now and you're looking at this and you're thinking, okay, I mean, this is going to be a while, it's not going to happen overnight.
No, but I mean, they've already started rolling it out to certain artists and some other people to kind of test it and things like that. So they have, it is now outside of OpenAI for some beta testers, but I can see this like, all the YouTube videos that have the B-roll footage with the, the track over it. There are tools like, I can't remember the name of them right now, but there's some video tools that have tried to do this in the past where you put in a script and it tries to find B-roll. It kind of matches up to your script, and they're not very good. They were clunky. This seems like a huge leap forward, to be able to do that. String together 8 or 10 of these clips with 8 or 10 prompts.
It's amazing.
And, I mean, take ChatGPT and then write, you'll be able to say, hey, storyboard me something based on this script.
Right.
That I can then plug into Sora, and it's going to know exactly what kind of prompts it needs. You take the script, take the prompts, put it in Sora. Next thing you know, you've got 8 videos, splice them together, which I'm sure, some tool will be able to do that. They'll be done for you tools within probably 6 months from now, I bet. So video editors, you thought you were safe.
Video editors.
You better start learning how to use it.
Actors.
Yeah, because if they're just literally making up, I mean,
no, it's like
crazy is how realistic it looks.
Yeah,
like it's not. I mean, yeah, it's just mind blowing.
It's going to change. I mean, so many industries will be affected. Advertising, commercials, videographers. I mean, people creating their own films. Like, I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yep. Hey, one last thing, because we're gonna take a break next week. I've got jury duty. So we're not going to be able to record next week.
Sean will be in a courthouse.
I wanted to just mention real quick the Super Bowl, which was last week.
Oh yeah.
Recording this.
Yep.
I sent you, Jonathan, the thing about Kanye's commercial. Did you see it when it aired?
Yeah. Well, I didn't see it when it aired. I saw the link you sent me. I missed that one.
Yeah, I did too. I didn't see it, but apparently enough people saw it. So the Kanye, if you don't know, Kanye had a video, and it was literally a handheld selfie video, like in the back of a car.
Yep.
Production budget of 0, according to the article. So he just paid for the spot, $7 million.
$7 million for the spot, right?
And they got over 200,000 orders for his Yeezys and made $19 million.
There you go.
We were talking last week on the last episode about ROI of Super Bowl ads.
$7 million for the spot.
What's that? Almost 3-to-1 ROI on that.
Fantastic.
So it's pretty wide. Literally made it with a handheld, with an iPhone handheld selfie video.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's like, hey, we didn't have any money left for the ad, so go buy our stuff. I mean, it's
pretty authentic, right?
Yeah. And that's
straight up.
Yeah.
Hey.
So, if you're out there overthinking your ad campaigns, that's a good one to go watch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, he has a lot of, he has a lot of followers. He has a lot of other stuff that makes that work.
Right.
But still, it just goes to show, it's very Ryan Reynolds like. It's like, just put something out and roll the dice, man. If you got the money.
Yep.
We don't all have $7 million, but he does. So why not?
Yeah. And you have to his credit, you've got the platform. You've got, everyone knows Kanye. So
love him or hate him,
Yeah. He's created a kind of a divisive type audience there. Some people, like you said, they can't stand him, but some people love him. He inserted himself in the last election, talking about running as a presidential candidate. And then, he's sparked all kinds of controversy. So I think it's worked in his favor.
Yeah. He's, doing just enough to kind of stay in the public light.
Yeah.
And run a Super Bowl ad and sell $19 million worth of Yeezys.
Yep. So, for sure.
It's crazy. It's
incredible.
Can you imagine like CBS getting that, or his account rep or whoever? It's like, are you sure this is this is what you want to run?
This is it. Yeah, that's it.
Sure, this isn't like what you were telling your team you needed. Like, this is the video.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But it is refreshing to see something like that. Everything is super. It's kind of like, pattern interruption, like you're watching, because I didn't see it, but I saw some other commercials, so I missed this spot. But you're seeing all of these other high production type commercials, and then all of a sudden you hit that, and it's like, what?
Yeah, your screen goes from widescreen down to the
what's going on here?
Yeah, it's like, oh.
So it does get your attention in that way. It's completely different.
Yeah, talk about big goat nuts. I mean, that's it's pretty.
He's got some.
Yeah. So there you go. We wrapped up full circle there. So.
All right. Very good. Well, that's a great show. I'm going to check out, speaking of nuts, I'm going to be checking out that documentary this weekend. Yep. And we'll be posting a link where people can find the book Charlatan. Great having Pope on. And Sean, this was good episode, minus the technical stuff at the beginning.
Yeah. Hey, we made it through though.
That's right. Cool. All right. Well, to all of our listeners, as Sean mentioned, he does have court duty next week. So we'll be taking off next week. We'll be back the week after. Hope everyone has a great week. And you can find us over at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your platforms. Check us out. Leave us 5 stars if you like it. And we'll talk to you guys again very soon.
See ya.